Greetings, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Nearly every person who is even slightly familiar with the Bible knows that the name of the land to which King Nebuchadnezzar exiled the Israelites is Babylon. But what most people are not aware of is that the name Babylon does not actually appear in the original writings of the Bible. That name appears only in translations of the Bible, but not in the original. In every place in those translations where the name Babylon appears, the name in the original is invariably Babel. But not every appearance of the name Babel in the originals was replaced with Babylon in the translations. If that had been done, it is very likely that most of us would never have heard of the Tower of Babel. The reason why most people know that the name of the place where the tower was located, at which our Creator mixed up human languages, is Babel and not Babylon, is because translators did not replace the name Babel with Babylon whenever it was clear to them that the original mentions Babel in connection with that tower. In other words, translators were not replacing the name Babel with Babylon randomly. They were following a specific logic. And that logic was that if the original mentions Babel, but not in connection with the tower that was at Babel, then they would change the name to Babylon. Otherwise, they would keep the name as Babel. That raises three questions. Number one, why did translators decide to replace the name Babel with Babylon in the first place? Why didn't they leave the name Babel as it was in their translations? Number two, having decided for whatever reason to replace the name Babel with Babylon, why did they not replace it everywhere that the name Babel appeared in the original? Number three, why did translators use the specific logic that they did to decide when to replace Babel with Babylon and when not to do so? It is the search for answers to those three questions that led to the discovery which has inspired the title of this video. Using two different names for a place where the original uses only one name has the effect of creating in the mind of a person reading only those translations the impression that Babylon was a different place from Babel. The people who most want such an impression to be created are the ones who claim that the Israel of the Bible was located in the Middle East. The reason is because a Middle Eastern location for the biblical Israel requires that the Babel to which the Israelites were exiled be located at a completely different place from where the evidence clearly shows that the Babel which had a tower was located. So where was the Babel of the tower located? Most Bible translations pronounce the name of the plain where the Tower of Babel was located as Shinar. That is the pronunciation which a group of people known as Masoretes gave to a word or a name which they found written in the original languages of the Bible using consonants alone. The video which I've linked below describes what the Masoretes did to change how names are pronounced of certain places which the Bible mentions and why they did it. In light of what the Masoretes did, which I encourage you very much to familiarize with, there is every reason to believe that the southeastern region of present-day Sudan, a region which is known as Sena, was part of the biblical land of Shinar. In addition to the Sena region of Sudan, the biblical land of Shinar most likely covered northern Ethiopia, all of Eritrea, and extended across the Red Sea to include the capital city of Yemen, which is known as Sana'a. One of the strongest indications, but by no means the only indication, that the region which I have just described truly is the biblical land of Shinar lies in the name of the strait which connects the Red Sea to the Indian Ocean. That strait is known as Bab el Mandab, which according to Wikipedia translates to Gate of Tears or Gate of Grief. Why would a place be named Gate of Tears or Gate of Grief? What happened at that place to warrant such a name? In describing what happened at the Tower of Babel, the book of Jasher, chapter 9 and verse 39, uses the following words: Many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. Given what happened at the Tower of Babel, Babel Mandab certainly is a fitting name for the place where that tower once stood. It is very likely that the Red Sea was formed when the land on which the Tower of Babel was built sank, as the book of Joshua says that it did, taking down with it a third of that tower. Why else is a document which was written in the 1st century AD titled Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, when the journey that it describes is mostly over the Indian Ocean? Periplus means a sailing around, while Erythra is the Greek word for red, meaning that Periplus of the Erythraean Sea translates to a sailing around the Red Sea. Evidently, as recently as the 1st century AD, the Indian Ocean was known as the Red Sea. How then did today's Red Sea come to have a name which once belonged to the Indian Ocean, if it was never at one time considered to be part of it? The conclusion that the Tower of Babel was located at Babel Mandab has a number of implications. The letters which inhabitants of Jerusalem exchanged with the rulers who were at Babel, and which are described in the book of Ezra chapters 5 and 6, leave no doubt that the Babel to which the Israelites were exiled was on the other side of a river from the Israel of the Bible. Babel Mandab is not on the other side of a river from the Middle East. That means that the only way that the Israel of the Bible could have been located in the Middle East is if the Babel to which the Israelites were exiled is a different place from the Babel which had that famous tower. And the question is it a different place? The answer to that question can be found in the final speech which Joshua gave to the Israelites, and which is recorded in the book of Joshua chapter 24. Most Bible translations have Joshua stating in verse 2 of that chapter that Terah, the father of Abraham, lived on the other side of the flood, and that he served other gods when he lived there. And in verse 3, that our Creator took Abraham from the other side of the flood and brought him into the land of Canaan. Those statements make no sense, of course, because all the Israelites who were then standing before Joshua knew that both Terah and Abraham lived on the same side of Noah's flood as they did. As it turns out, the word in those verses, which is translated as flood, is the same word that is everywhere else translated as river, meaning that what Joshua was actually saying is that Terah, the father of Abraham, lived on the other side of the river, the same terminology that you find in the book of Ezra, and that when he lived there, he served other gods. We know from the book of Joshua that Terah did in fact serve other gods when he was a prince of Nimrod, the son of Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah. This is the same Nimrod who founded the city of Shinar in the same plain where the Tower of Babel was built, and also the king and founder of the city of Babel. It is therefore virtually certain that the place where Terah lived when he served other gods was the same region where the Tower of Babel was built. That means that the Babel, which had a tower, was on the other side of a river from the Israel of the Bible, exactly the same way that the Babel to which the Israelites were exiled was on the other side of a river from the Israel of the Bible. It is virtually impossible that there were two different places, both on the other side of the river from the Israel of the Bible, which had exactly the same name. The truth is that the Babel to which the Israelites were exiled and the Babel which had a tower are one and the same place. That means three things. Number one, the Israel of the Bible could not have been located in the Middle East. The name Babylon was introduced into the translations of the Bible at the behest of very powerful people who wanted to locate a counterfeit of the biblical Israel in the Middle East. Those people had enough influence to cause the word for river to be translated as flood in the book of Joshua chapter 24 verses 2 and 3. Number two, Babylon or Babel must have been located in northern Ethiopia. The reason is because northern Ethiopia is the place which is closest to Babel Mandab, that has the system of rivers that could have inspired the famous song of Psalm 137, by the rivers of Babylon. Gondar is the principal city of northern Ethiopia and was for many years the capital of the Ethiopian Empire. At Gondar are ruins which clearly show that the rulers over that empire had a tradition of keeping lions, a tradition which continued even up to the time of Emperor Haile Selassie. That is very telling because Daniel the prophet was cast into a den of lions when he was living in Babylon or Babel. Number 3, the river that Babel was on the other side of, relative to the Israel of the Bible, is the Nile. That conclusion agrees perfectly with other evidence which I have presented on this channel regarding where the Israel of the Bible was located. In conclusion, the discovery that Babylon was located in northern Ethiopia explains 3 observations which until now have remained somewhat of a mystery and have never had a satisfactory explanation. Number 1, the reason why practices which clearly originate in the Bible are common in Ethiopia is because the Israelites lived in Ethiopia for at least 70 years. It is likely that not all of them returned to the land of Israel when King Cyrus set them free. It is also likely that non-Israelite inhabitants of Ethiopia adopted, some of the non-Israelite inhabitants adopted practices which they saw among the Israelites who were living in the same place with them. Number 2, the reason why every European searching for the Ark of the Covenant of our Creator invariably goes to Ethiopia is because all of them know that Ethiopia is the biblical Babylon. The last that the Ark of the Covenant was heard of is when King Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and carried the artifacts that were kept there back to Babylon. It is almost certain that the Ark of the Covenant was among those artifacts. Number 3, the reason why malaria ranks among the top 3 possible causes of death for Alexander the Great is because the Babylon in which he died, or the Babylon that Alexander died in, is actually northern Ethiopia. Evidently, the conquest of Alexander the Great went no further than northern Ethiopia. History has clearly been manipulated to make Alexander a much greater person than the man who actually lived by crediting him with conquering lands that he never so much as set foot in. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and have a good day. Bye-bye.